what ChatGPT is and what ChatGPT isn't over at the same time. Now, there's a lot of different ways that people like to think of ChatGPT. One of the most popular is that it's a robot and it's there to sit and assist me on all sides. Another way people think about it is just in terms of it's an application, it's computer code that's out there to assist. One of the more common ways people look at ChatGPT is thinking about it as an assistant. And I really like this because the way I like to think of it is that it is there, it's an assistant that's always there for me that I can pop and ask questions or I can query. But there's another way that I like to look at ChatGPT that makes it a little bit more clear, right? If you could imagine that you had a ChatGPT as a chef, and not just any chef, a 5-star Michelin chef that could prepare any dish that you could possibly imagine 24/7 available at your beck and call. But there's one caveat. And the one caveat that you have to deal with is that this chef can only prepare dishes with the ingredients you provide. And think about that for a moment. Anything is available to you, but you are responsible for bringing in the right ingredients. And that's the best way to think about ChatGPT. Its capabilities are mind-blowing, but they're all limited based to what you bring to the table. So let's take a look at how we can do that. We're going to start by looking at a little bit of history. How did ChatGPT come about? Where did it come from? So ChatGPT was created by a company called OpenAI. And OpenAI was founded in 2015 with the mission of creating artificial intelligence systems. Now, when they first started out, they had no specific product or goal in mind. It was literally a think tank set up to look at all different types of artificial intelligence, from language models, images, computer vision, and much more. In 2018, they released the first version of their generative pre-trained processor or transformer called GPT-1. And it was released over to academia, and it was the first text interaction over with AI. So what they did with ChatGPT was they took this GPT-1 technology and they packaged it over into a chatbot. And the functions of the chatbot were basically that it can take dictation and it can take direction in plain spoken English. The other thing that's really amazing is that the output of it is generated on the fly. So unlike a search engine or something like Google that is basically saying, I know of a document that exists, I'm going to pull up the document and share it with you, ChatGPT could actually take out the context and create an individual bespoke answer to any question asked. They released multiple versions of the GPT software, and every different version was trained on larger and larger and larger data sets. In November of last year, they released ChatGPT to the public with GPT 3.5, and this last February, they upgraded that with the release of GPT 4. So let's think about that just for a moment. November 30th of last year, that's less than 6 months ago. It was nothing. Nobody had heard of it. Today, there are over 500 million users of ChatGPT. It has become one of the fastest adopted technologies over in history. So let's take a look at some different sides and things as to what ChatGPT is. It's an advanced AI language model that mimics human text. It takes inputs in basic, direct, natural language. And this is something that's really incredible. You know, when we think about technology, a lot of the times it tends to be really complicated and technical. Not with ChatGPT.
I'm better.
We're using plain, natural English. It's a versatile tool. And this is one of the things is that every single day there are new use cases that are being brought up for how this AI can be used. It's an information resource. Now, one of the things about ChatGPT, and we're going to talk about this a little bit later, is how current the data is in ChatGPT. I'm going to show you some really cool tricks that you can actually use it as your primary search engine even today. And the other thing that is really incredible about it is that ChatGPT is continually learning, right? Anytime you enter in a prompt, anytime you are feeding it information, it is learning, it is improving. And so an answer that you might get today on a question might vary tomorrow as the system is growing. Now, the other things we have to look at is really what ChatGPT isn't, or what ChatGPT isn't yet. Most importantly, it's not a human replacement. A lot of times people are sitting and freaking out and saying, oh, my job or anything is going to be taken up by AI. It's going to replace me. It's not going to replace you. What it is going to do is it is going to aid you. And that's something that's really important. Another thing, it's not infallible. And this is one of the, the crazy things on it, because the answers are so incredibly convincing. But here's the thing, ChatGPT knows that if it doesn't have information, it knows kind of how to fill in the blanks. And what we call those is we call those AI hallucinations, that it might put in information that isn't accurate. It's not infallible. It's also not up to date. And I mentioned this a little bit earlier. The current version of ChatGPT 4 is based on a version of the internet. It learned everything on the internet up to September 2021. Now, there are constant updates and there is more current information that's being fed to it. However, right out of the box, you can't use it to call up current information. I'm going to show you some workarounds around that. It's also not suitable for sensitive advice. If you remember, I mentioned earlier that it's continually learning. And this is something we've got to be really conscious of. If you've got a contract with a client's social security number on the contract, you don't want to feed that into ChatGPT because that information will be stored. Last, it's not visual. It is text-based. But as I mentioned, and it's the same with the not up-to-date and the not visual, it's not visual yet. There is a beta version of ChatGPT right now that actually allows you to upload a photograph and it will come back and describe that photograph to you in text. That being said, it is still not available for the general public, so we'll always send out updates when these new features become available. So really what ChatGPT isn't, it's not a real estate agent or broker. It's not a real estate attorney. It does a great job answering things in these different areas. But most importantly, it's not you. It doesn't bring your expertise and most importantly, your relationships and your ability to foster relationships to the table. That's something that's really important. So let's take a look at some different use cases for ChatGPT in real estate. Now, what I need to do, excuse me 1 second here, guys. I'm going to jump out of the screen share for a second, just so I can close something up over here. Okay, brilliant. Okay, so on the use cases, the first use case, which everybody is familiar with and knows, are listing descriptions. But as I mentioned, there are so much more. You can create agent bios, blog content, doing data analysis, doing your comps. You can actually take a look at doing pricing for comps prior to putting something for sale, and also in doing your after sale research and taking a look at why one property sold for more or less than another property. You can use it for social media, for creating social media content, but more. You can use it for creating social media strategies, creating social media schedules. You can use it for client communications, for sales scripts, for role playing. Remember, as I mentioned earlier, since it's a chatbot and you are talking back and forth, you're interacting with it like a person, you can actually do your role playing through ChatGPT. It's an amazing tool for lead generation, for doing sales checklists, for generating neighborhood data, for doing video scripts, and any type of marketing, website, and website content. Some of the benefits that you're going to see with ChatGPT are a fast turnaround. You know, all of us in our careers and in our business have folks that are assisting us, whether it is assistants or whether we're going out to third parties and hiring them to help us out. I had one client who used an agency to create her newsletter. And every month she spent $300 with the agency to create the newsletter, and it would take a week, she'd get the information back. When she started using ChatGPT, she created her own first newsletter in about 15 minutes. And she said, outside of not having to spend the money, the greatest thing was that there was an immediate turnaround. She didn't have to spend her time waiting for it to happen. And what it also does is it brings in self-sufficiency. Again, not having to rely on any of these outside assistants. It's amazing for idea generation. You've got a new property. You want to find out ways to highlight that property. Get into a conversation with ChatGPT and help it and let it help you with your ideations. And my favorite, one of the key benefits is time. I can't tell you over and over again how much time I have saved since I started adopting this technology. So let's take a look at getting started with ChatGPT. Now, one of the things that I've done for this presentation, anytime I'm going to mention a URL or that, I've popped up a QR code that you can take a shot of so you can go to those pages. You don't need to worry about doing it while we're doing the presentation right now, because I am actually going to make this whole deck available to everybody on the call at the end of the presentation. So this is the URL to go to ChatGPT. And if you've got an account, you can go and log in. If you don't have an account, you can go over here and simply select the sign up button. The sign up for ChatGPT is really simple. It's like a 3 or 4 step process. It doesn't ask for a lot of information. It'll ask for email. You'll do your email verification. And then it'll also ask you for a phone number and bring you a verification screen for the phone number. The reason I bring this up right now, this is something that's really important to take note of. OpenAI are only allowing you to register 2 ChatGPT accounts to a phone number, and there is no way to remove the ChatGPT account from a phone number. I just want everybody to be aware that when you register it to that number, you are actually tying the ChatGPT code to that phone. When you log in, it's going to bring you to your this screen, which is the general ChatGPT screen, and it shows you some examples of queries, gives you a little bit of capabilities and limitations. And right beneath that, you've got your prompt bar, and we're going to talk about that in a second. You'll also notice that there is a little button over to the left that says Upgrade to Plus. There are 2 versions of ChatGPT available to the public. There's the free version, and then there's a paid version, which is called ChatGPT Plus. It's $20 a month. The difference between the two? Well, the ChatGPT free version it only runs ChatGPT 3.5. And if you remember earlier, I mentioned that ChatGPT 4 was released in February. And it is an incredible model, the ChatGPT 4. That being said, there's nothing wrong with ChatGPT 3.5. And actually, one benefit of 3.5 is it is faster than 4.0, but that's available to you for free. As we mentioned, there are 500 million people that are using the system. So sometimes when you're using ChatGPT free, and there's a lot of users on the system, you might be blocked out. With the $20 a month ChatGPT Plus, you've got 24/7 access. You're never, ever blocked out. You've got access to ChatGPT 4, and you also get access to some of the latest and greatest new features. ChatGPT have introduced plugins to extend the functionality of ChatGPT, and those are currently being rolled out only to the ChatGPT Plus users. So we give our instructions, we interact with ChatGPT via prompts. I like to think of prompts as a question or even a recipe for what it is that you want. And like anything with data, you've got the garbage in, garbage out slogan that goes with it. If you put in a very simplistic prompt without any guidance, you're not going to get a great answer over in response. So I like to take a look at a different way as to how we put together a prompt. And when I was thinking about it, I thought, you need to build a prompt. And what if we build a prompt the same way that we build a house, that there's those different components? So where do we start off with? We're going to start with the foundation. The foundation is the persona. And what the persona is it's asking, whose voice do you want the output of this task to be written in? So for an example, if I were doing a listing description, I could say, I'm an experienced real estate marketer with a poetic sense of language. Now, I'm using a very dramatic example over here so we can see the output and it'll all make sense. The next step is putting up the framing, and that is the task. The task is specifically what we want ChatGPT to do for us, right? So in this case, we're going to ask it to write a property description for 5348 Blanco Way in Culver City, California. Next, we're going to do the rough-ins. And the rough-ins are providing context. And context is any specific data to make sure that you get the most accurate output. So I can drop in over here, it's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, there's new granite counters in the kitchen, hot tub, any details that I want to throw in that I really want to make sure that it gets addressed in the description. Next, we have our insulation and drywall, which are the steps. And this is, how do you want ChatGPT to do this for you, right? So we're saying here, first, paint a picture of the house, describe the community, schools, and finally, express the rare opportunity of a home like this coming to the market. Last but not least, we have our finishing, right? Which is our goal and our format. And this is where you describe in detail exactly how you want this output to look and what that output needs to be. So for example, here we're saying it's a marketing description for the MLS with no more than 400 words with keywords highlighted. So here you see there are 5 ingredients that we've come up with for creating this prompt. And what you can do is you can take them and literally just stitch them together to create a prompt. So here we have all of the information, we have our context, we've got the steps, and we've got our goals. This is the prompt that you can take and copy right into ChatGPT. And so when I ran this through ChatGPT, remember, as I said earlier, I used the example that you are a marketing specialist, a real estate marketing specialist with a poetic flair for language. So when you look over here and you see even just lines like this exquisite 3-bedroom, 2-bath sanctuary combines modern luxuries with timeless charm, beckoning those seeking the quintessential Californian retreat. You get an idea in just giving that direction to ChatGPT how I can craft the output or the end result. Now, we've gone and created a little tool that makes this really, really easy for you on our website, and it's the Whiz Prompt Builder. And literally what we've got here is very simple 5 fields that have each one of the areas labeled. So you can go in, type in your persona, your task, your rough-in. You click the Generate Prompt buttons, and it will create the formatted prompt that you can copy to your clipboard and paste right into ChatGPT. So let's look at some tips for creating compelling listing descriptions, right? Since we used a listing description as our example in building the prompt, here are some things that you can do to create compelling listing descriptions. And I like to use, there are 5 different commands here. I like to include these in when I'm doing listing descriptions, use one of these just so it gives some variation. One of which is to use vivid, evocative language. You don't want your outputs sounding bland. You can inject that excitement into it. We want to highlight key selling points, right? And so this is something that's really important. And again, remember, as I said earlier, ChatGPT can fill in the blanks and create those hallucinations. So the more data you give it, if you're saying these are the selling points I wanted to hit, it'll make sure those are addressed. Another thing is, instead of it just being a description, I like to tell it to tell a story, which can evoke the living experience and give the users an emotional connection to it. Something that we don't think about when we're creating our listings is that even a listing is content over on the internet. And when you're creating your listing, something we don't think about is search engine optimization. So I like to tell ChatGPT to optimize for SEO, so it makes sure that relevant keywords are there and that you've got search-friendly phrases that are incorporated into it. The other thing is ChatGPT can be incredibly verbose. So one of the things I like to tell it is to try and be more concise. Now, when working with ChatGPT, it's not simply a drop your query in, get the response, and you're good to go. ChatGPT it's a conversation. It's a back and forth. So if you get a response or a result back that might be too long, you can tell it, okay, this is great, but can you do it again more concise? Or can you inject some humor? Or can you reword or re-summarize it? The most important thing is to provide as much current data as possible. And this is over in the context area of your of creating your prompt. One of the ways that I like to provide as much data as possible is copying information from the MLS. So it might have been a previous listing of a property, or I'll go ahead and if my wife has got a property, she'll put in all of the data for her listing with the exception of the description, and then we can go and copy it. So you don't need to worry about formatting. If you pull up an MLS listing, like I've done here, you can literally drag your cursor across the screen, copy all of that information, and just paste that directly into your prompt, and it knows all of the context of each one of those elements in it. So when we're working with ChatGPT, there are a whole variations of different prompt types. And there are 13 key prompt types that ChatGPT works with. And we're going to run through them very quickly with some examples so you can see the different type of questions. You've got open-ended questions, and this is something where you can ask a question like, what are the current real estate market trends in a location, and how can I best position my clients to take advantage of this? You're not looking for a definitive answer. This is an open-ended prompt and a great way to start brainstorming or to start a conversation. You can ask a multiple choice question. So you can give ChatGPT a selection of different options, ask it a question, and let it find which of those would be the more relevant answer. You can do a fill in the blank prompt. So this is, again, a great one. I have a whole series of these in our master prompts list. So, a quick one, average price per square foot, drop in the city, and here I can pop and ask that questions. This, believe it or not, is actually one of my favorites, which is a yes/no prompt. The question I used over here as an example is 123 Main Street in Topeka, Kansas zoned for Atchison Elementary School, right? Now, I could go to Google and I could, ask that question, and it would bring up, a document that I could scan through and try and find the information or see what schools that address is zoned for. But I really want a simple answer to a question. So I can ask this question and ChatGPT will respond, yes, it's in that school zone. Really quick, simple one. Another thing is to do a ranking prompt. You can give a list of things and ask ChatGPT to rank them in order of importance. You can create scenario prompts, telling ChatGPT to imagine themselves in a specific scenario. How would they deal with the situation? So in this example, we're looking at a unique property with unconventional features. What are some of the marketing approaches that I can use to bring in the right buyer for this property? You've got comparative prompts in comparing two different things and asking for a reason why. You've got prediction prompts, asking it to be a magic 8-ball. So what is the market going to look like based on trends in the next 5 to 10 years, and how can I prepare my clients for this? Explanation prompts. This is great when you want to get ChatGPT to explain something really simply. And this specific one, can you explain a 30-year fixed mortgage in simple terms, is a great example of things that that we know the answers of. We give them all the time. This is just another way to look at it. You can ask ChatGPT for opinions. What is your opinion of A versus B? Another great one are instructional prompts. Now, as I mentioned earlier in working with ChatGPT for social media, here you can ask it, to what is the right way for me to build a social media strategy? Can you create a 30-day calendar with the posts I need to make? Another instructional prompt that you can have, I used an example this week where I had a client that was preparing an open house for a luxury property, and we used ChatGPT to come up with instructions and a plan for the party that we were going to give on the first open house. You can ask ChatGPT for feedback prompts. So an example over here is, I had an open house, I didn't get the response that I wanted. Let's take a look at why. Can you give me some feedback of what went wrong and how I can do it better? And then last but not least, you've also got an empathy prompt. And this is the one that always makes me giggle, because we are talking about artificial intelligence, but we're asking it to imagine feeling something. So here we're talking about a discouraged client that was outbid on a property. What are some ways that we can help them to cope with the disappointment? So while we're working with ChatGPT, there are so many different skills in that we garner, but there are really only two primary skills of a true ChatGPT master. And the thing is that, what really makes a ChatGPT master is an eye for detail. The first one of these skills is proofreading, right? As I mentioned earlier, and I've said this numerous times, is don't assume that the output is going to be accurate. Now, for me, this has actually been a really, really good thing, because I have been notoriously bad on proofreading, sending out emails, things that I create. And since I started using ChatGPT, I've actually found that it has helped train me to proofread everything. And as an extension on that, the second one is fact checking, right? So anytime that there's a stat or a number that is brought up, I always like to go back and double check to make sure that it is accurate. So, as I mentioned at the beginning of the call, there is so much that is going on in this space, and there are some incredible little bonuses and tips and tricks that we've come across. One of which that I know is one of many's personal favorites, and it's called iChatGPT. And what it allows you to do is it allows you to interact with ChatGPT-4 using messages on your phone. Now, a couple things about this. It is completely free. There is, you can go through this QR code that I put up on the screen, and there is a little registration process that takes you through the screens. You put in your phone number, and it'll go and send you a response to that. But what we noticed when we were doing this, because of the popularity of this, sometimes it's taking people a week or so to get their invitations, and the invitations only work with iPhone. So we found a little hack for that. If you see the telephone number that's there on the screen, if you create a contact with that phone number in your phone, I actually created a contact. I called my contact ChatGPT. And now, whenever I need a quick interaction with ChatGPT, I can literally call up Siri on my phone and say, Siri, message ChatGPT. I ask my question, and the response pops right up. It's really cool. It's fun. It's free, and you can sign up for it right now using that phone number. Another thing that I mentioned, and this is one that is so exciting. This is a new one. We didn't have this 2 weeks ago. I've mentioned numerous times throughout the presentation that we are restricted to data based on September 2021. That's the most up-to-date data that is in the ChatGPT base. But there is a plugin that was created if you use Chrome, Firefox, or Edge browsers. Unfortunately, only available on your desktops. But what it does is it allows you to inject real-time data into your ChatGPT prompts. So let me show you the way that works. I did a query where I asked ChatGPT, who's the current listing agent for 262 South Orange Drive in LA? And I did this. You'll see at the bottom underneath my prompt, you'll see it says web access. That is the plugin. So I've got my web access turned off. And it says, I'm sorry, but as an AI developed by OpenAI, I don't have any real-time access to databases. And it gives you the spiel about the September 2021 date. Now, if I turn that web access on and I ask the same prompt, the response I get back is the current listing agent for 262 South Orange is Ann Loveland with Coldwell Banker, and it gives me some references to that. So this is free. It's available today. You can go and install and get it right in. Now, one of the things that we do over at WizPrompt is, we look at ourselves as far more than just ChatGPT, and we find a lot of really cool AI tools available, and we look at ways that they can be used in real estate. One of those that we've come across, which is so amazing, is called reimaginehome.ai. And what this allows you to do is to basically redesign spaces automatically, right? So as an example, the photo that I've got over at the left was a picture that I took of my daughter's bedroom, and I uploaded it to Reimagine AI. It gives you a bunch of different styles to choose from and instantly redesigns the furnishings, everything in the room. This took about a minute to generate these responses back. And the way that we're using this is, when we've got a client that we're showing a property to, and one of the things that we're doing now when we're onboarding clients is getting an idea for their aesthetic and their style. And when we send them an email about a new property, one of the things that we can do is run the photos through the style to make it virtually staged the way that they would like to see it. This is really, really powerful, and it's currently free too. So I highly recommend going to